Welcome to the Unhinged Vibes Podcast with your hosts. My name is CaramellThunder, and I'm here with...
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Coastal, a.k.a. Coast Dynasty on Instagram, a.k.a. Coastal Pod, H-O-H-O-H-O. Boys and girls, there's only 60 days left until Christmas. Make sure those letters are getting to Santa.
I was wondering what you were spelling. I was like, O-H-O-O. Oh, I get it. That was good, man. How's it going, buddy? It's been a while.
It has been a while. It's been too long.
Yes.
It's been way too long. Hope you're doing well out there, man. We miss you.
Thank you. It's good. It's colder weather up here, but everything is good. Today we are going to be recording through Zoom call today. So disclaimer, if there's any audio issues, whatever else, who really cares? It's just a Zoom call. The more important is that we are gathering to record this podcast. So
absolutely. My apologies. How are you doing? I'm doing good, man. I'm
doing good.
Yeah, my apologies if I'm a little off on the timing. This is my first Zoom call podcast. We just got through my first hosting one, and that one we didn't fall off the rails too badly. So hopefully this one goes sort of goes according to plan as well. I am excited to talk to you though. Again, man, I'm glad to hand off those hosting duties to the guy who is El Jefe, as I called you in the last pod.
No, that last week episode was really good. I really enjoyed hearing it all. This week's episode, we're going to be doing a little get to know CNC, get to know Caramel and Coastal, or Coastal and Caramel. Doesn't matter how you want to put it, but we're going to get to know CNC a little bit more today. Okay.
Absolutely, man. It's going to be fun. I mean, the first one we did was one of my personal highlights, just talking about movies and just the fact that there is that generational difference between the two of us. And I love seeing how that sort of evolved through our love of pop culture. So that's what I'm excited about today. Last time was movies. What are we doing this time?
This time we're going to be talking about maybe my second favorite pastime. Okay. First would be magic, but my second favorite pastime would be video games and gaming in general.
Yeah, all definitely right? Myself as well. I mean, it is if it's not my favorite hobby, which at this point in my life may not be my favorite hobby anymore, it is certainly the one that I've been involved with the longest. So it has been a lifelong love affair with video games. So I'm definitely excited to talk a little bit of console gaming with you.
Yes. So please note that we're going to be focusing on console gaming, but of course PC gaming will pop up here and then. So, but we're going to be trying to focus on console games. Okay. So some of the topics that we're going to be, or some of the questions that are going to be asked for this episode are, what was your first and favorite console? What is your most favorite game or a franchise of games? Okay. How much do you game? What about gaming shaped you as a person, and then what were your thoughts on the console war? So those are the questions that we're going to be going through today. So first off, let's just get right deep into it. How did gaming shape you as a person? Like right out of the gate, how did it change your life?
That's a good question. You know what? Let me think about that for a quick sec. I almost want to say, like, my first initial instinct when you ask me, how does gaming change me, is I don't think it did. Right. But at the same time, the thing about that is that the video games have been so ubiquitous in my life from such an early age. I struggle remembering a time when video games weren't in my life. So it's almost like, how did video games change me? It's tough to answer that question because I don't know what kind of person I am without video games, because it has been so prevalent in my life from the time I was about 6 all the way up until, I mean, I'm in my 40s. So we're looking at a significant, like the majority of my life has been very deep rooted in video games. So that, so many of my memories as a child growing up, as a young adult, even as a father, they're all, so many of them are rooted in playing video games and in the pursuit of video games, that it's tough for me to say what's changed me, but to say that it has had a profound impact on my life is really sort of almost undercutting the importance of video games in my life. What about yourself in terms of the question? How do you think it's changed you?
For me, I know, like, it's changed me in the fact that it may be more expressive. You know, I got to express myself in multiple ways. Usually, like, if there weren't any video games, you'd be drawing, you'd be like you'd be writing, whatever else, you know. So I think for me, video games allowed me to express myself in a way that no other sort of medium could do,
That's a
right?
really good point. That's a very, very good point, and I'd have to say I agree with that for myself as well. It is definitely a point of expression for me. I was not a very artistic child
Mhm.
in terms of the fine arts, in terms of drawing or singing or dancing.
Yeah.
So that may have been where my artistic expression came out most, is in the video game world.
Yeah, so for me, I wasn't really good at those things, right? So gaming actually allowed me to, if I wanted to play sports, I could play some FIFA. If I wanted to be a pro driver, I could play some Need for Speed, or if I wanted to kill things, I'd play God of War, just so
Yeah,
stuff like
absolutely.
that, right?
Yeah, it's that escapism, and it's funny because that's sort of, if we want to talk about, I mean, maybe not so much why, how gaming changed me, but why I played video games. It's an evolution of that from when I was younger. Definitely, gaming was an escape, but it was aspirational, like you were saying. When I was younger, it was, this is how I would be if I made it to the NBA. Like, I can be an NBA All Star and an NHL All Star and an
Mhm.
NFL All Star all in the span of an afternoon. So absolutely, that's um, I think not so much how much it's changed me, but that's definitely part of why I played video games.
Yeah. So before we go into the whole, what was your first console? Okay. Um, did you buy your first console or did someone buy it for you?
So let me preface this by saying, like, this is where that age gap is going to really start to show between the two of us. My first console was definitely not one I bought myself.
Mhm.
So I like I said, I started gaming at a very early age. Um, I had asked my parents because I had just come home from my friend's house, and they had the brand new Nintendo Entertainment System. The
Brand new.
OG itself was what I came home after playing it at my friend's house, and I was like, I need to have this. Mom, Dad, I absolutely need to have this. And as good parents tend to do, they looked at me and said, "No, absolutely not. That's not happening. You're not just getting a video game system." So I did what most smart assy kids did, and I asked my aunt, who tended to spoil me. So I asked her for that video game system, and we went down to the local department store. I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember Eaton's?
No, no,
You
I
don't even
don't.
remember
Wait,
Eaton's?
wait.
Oh,
Eaton's place?
Eaton's the one at Polo Park, and yeah, and
Yeah,
Eaton's
yeah, yeah,
place
okay, yeah,
in
yeah, yeah. I
Eaton's
remember
place
that
downtown.
place. I remember
Okay,
that
so
place.
I went with my aunt to Eaton's, and the very first console that I ever had was not just the Nintendo Entertainment System, but I got the Nintendo Deluxe set. So that was the one that had the Nintendo, it had the Zapper, which was the light gun, and
Oh.
it had the Rob, which was your robotic operating buddy. And I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of it, but it was a little robot that came with it, and it would actually move. You would control the robot with your controller, and it would move these spinning tops that they would use to press the controller for you. And
That's pretty
they
cool.
would use that to control your game. It was awful control wise. I think there's only 2 games for it,
Oh my
but
gosh.
I did have one of them. I had Gyromite, I had Duck Hunt, and I had Super Mario Brothers 1. Those were my very first games, and that was my introduction into video games. And after that, I was hooked. So, having said that, how about you go ahead and make me feel super old right now? You tell me, one, how did you get your first console? And
Okay.
two, which one from my 20s was your first
Yeah.
console?
Well, I believe my mom bought me this console for Christmas. Well, it wasn't just for me. She bought our family this console for
Okay.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was the Nintendo 64.
Oh my God.
That was my first ever console. And I remember
Awesome.
that our first game that we
Yeah.
played was Mario Kart 64.
I mean, if you're gonna get the system for the family, that is the game to get
Yeah.
right there.
So I know that my mom bought the console and I believe she bought extra controllers. And every time the family was over, the cousins were over, we'd pop that puppy in. We'd all play Mario Kart. And we like, I I have very fond memories of holidays. We would all be playing either that farm one, the farm track, or the
Okay.
Rainbow Road. Those are my two favorite
Oh,
tracks because we always played those over and over again.
Rainbow Road, man, that is
It's
everybody's.
very good, right? And
Yeah,
I remember
it
like
is.
as a kid, I had a hard time with Rainbow Road because like it was just crazy. So my mom would play, right? And she'd like she'd help me beat the cups. So it was great. So for me, yeah, the N64 was my first ever console, and it was a great system. It was a great system. I played a lot of like sci-fi shooting games on there. I actually never owned GoldenEye.
Oh, okay.
I've only played it at my friend's place, but I've never actually owned GoldenEye itself. But I had like NHL on there. What else? Yeah, like it was all the old school stuff. It was good. I loved my I still have my N64 too, and it still works.
Oh man, I
It
am
still
so
works.
envious of you right now. I gotta tell you, the Nintendo 64 holds a very special place in my heart. And
Mhm.
as we continue to talk about video games and consoles, my experiences and my sort of memories with the 64 are going to come up. They're going to be a little bit different from yours, in terms of the fact that I was in my mid to late teens during the height of
Okay.
the Nintendo 64. So that was around the time when I was just starting to grow up and starting to hang out with my friends, and that is going to be sort of where I come from in terms of in terms of the Nintendo 64, is just um, memories of sleeping over at my friend's place, us heading down to Blockbuster and renting a game, and so those are all of my personal memories for the 64. I think that's awesome that, and kind of dating me a little bit, that you were a child when we were going out, and I still remember I I remember driving when I first had my license
Really?
to rent a Nintendo 64 game.
That's
So
so funny. Oh,
yeah,
that's great. That's absolutely great. Honestly, I love the system to death. I absolutely loved it. It was because of that system I got hooked on gaming consoles, or at least gaming in general, right?
yeah,
Now, I've been to your house. We've played Magic in your basement, and I've
yep,
seen your collection. Okay.
yeah.
How many gaming consoles do you actually own
Currently,
currently?
all right. So remember when we had earlier when he talked about sort of the escapism, and
Yeah.
that the as a child it was sort of an aspirational thing when you played video games. So now that I'm a little bit older, and I have a little bit more access to money that I can use, very stupidly, and with the last sort of year and a half being cooped up in our homes, I have been on a bit of a retro gaming kick. So I have purchased a lot more consoles that I didn't have access to when I was younger. So in terms of what I currently own,
Mm,
I own an Xbox Series X. That is the
yeah.
main console that I used to play. I also have an Xbox One, which is actually at my son's place. I own an Xbox 360, which is
Mhm.
next to the Xbox Series X. I have two original Xbox consoles, one in
Nice.
my personal bedroom and then one downstairs. I own a PlayStation 2, which does not even get used. That was just, I mean, at this point, it's a decoration.
Yeah.
I also own a PlayStation Vita, a PSP, a Nintendo Switch, a Nintendo 3DS, a Nintendo DS, a Game Gear, the mini
Wow.
NES console, like the
Yeah.
the mini ones. I have the Nintendo one, I have the PlayStation one, and I have the Genesis one. So
That's a good
that
list.
that is currently what's sitting in my house. You ask me how much video games I play a week, maybe 2 hours. So they are really more for decorative purposes at this point. When I was younger, I've also owned the Super Nintendo, the Genesis, the PlayStation 1, the Saturn, and like we talked about, the Nintendo 64. So
Yeah.
those I ran the gamut from 1986 to 2021.
Oh wow.
I've owned my share of time wasters, if you will.
That's pretty good, actually. That's actually really good. For me, let's see here. I don't have the exact list, so I'm trying to go it off the top of my head. Okay. I got the N64.
Yep.
I'm gonna try and do them in order too. N64. Then I got the PS1, PS2, and PS3, PS4. I think it was either the PS2 or PS3, whichever one had the Slim.
Okay, I think they both did.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
know I had the Slim for at least one of the PS2 or PS3s.
Okay.
So I had the Slim as well. Um, I said PS4, um, GameCube, a Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, PSP, PS Vita, My Nintendo Switch, I owned 2 of the first Xboxes. The Wii.
I never owned the
Um,
Wii.
the Wii was game breaking. Like it was great family fun. Like I
Yeah.
actually
Oh
loved the
man.
Wii. It changed the game 100%.
Yeah, my buddy brought a Wii over to one of the parties that we had, and I loved it. I just never got around to getting one.
Let's see. I already said Game Boy. And I think my latest one is just the PC. That's my latest console. It's the
Yeah, I
PC,
mean it's
right?
been kind of tough snagging the new generation ones.
Yeah.
So I get it, man. The one that hurts when you mentioned it was the PS Vita, because I
Oh
own one too, and man,
man, I
it
love
was
my
ahead of its
Vita.
time. It's so
Yep.
good still, and it just Sony just dropped support of it so fast that
On
it just
if they actually continued good support for the PS Vita and they made like a new iteration, like how Nintendo made the Switch,
yeah,
I
basically
think I think it would be very close in regards to quality wise with the Switch.
the
100%.
graphics that they had, I mean, just the capability, the games that it could run,
Mhm.
even to this day now, it's still really an impressive handheld console.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just it's sad that they didn't move forward with it, and I'm not
Yep.
sure why. I mean, I guess sales were slow at first, and that memory card thing was really the killer for it. Just
Yeah.
the you know the proprietary memory card, which Sony tends to like to do.
But honestly, overall though, like I wish that system continued on because I played the hell out of my Vita.
Yeah,
I
I
really
mean,
did, and it's mine still looks brand new. Like there's not a scratch on it.
yeah, and then honestly, I had mentioned it's funny because you're saying I have to try to name it in order. The only reason I was able to fire off those consoles is I'm looking at them right now,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at a shelf that has let me see here real quickly 8 handheld consoles. There's literally one that I play, and it's the Vita.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's a really great aftermarket sort of homebrewing community with it that just really unlocks the power
That's actually awesome.
of that system. And it's a shame that it wasn't supported better, because it really is it it could have been there, it could have been more. It really could have been more.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like now when it comes to your favorite console, right?
Ooh, speaking of, yeah.
Um, what is your favorite console? Like if you want, you can break it down to what is your favorite console and handheld console if you want. But either or, like, what is your favorite, dude?
Sure. So let me preface it by talking about sort of the 3 consoles that I think of that sort of hold a special place in my heart.
Mhm.
Right. So we had talked about the Nintendo, and I had mentioned that that was not a console I purchased. So the first one I'm going to bring up is one that holds special place in my heart, because it was actually the first console I bought myself with money that I'd earned from a part-time job. It's funny because, like I said, we went to Eaton's to buy to buy the Nintendo. My first job to be able to buy this console was actually at Eaton's when I worked part-time.
Oh, very nice.
So I actually, and now a connection to you, I went to Toys R Us
Very
to buy my
nice.
very first console, and it was the Sega Saturn.
Oh,
So the
okay.
Sega Saturn was my very first console, which I mean, in hindsight, a bit of a tragedy, because that thing was they dropped that way too quickly, and I had put way too much money in it. It really disheartened me on Sega,
Mhm.
actually, because I was sort of ride or die with Sega for so long, and then that happened, and it was funny too, because I was really mad at the Toys R Us salesperson when I tried to buy a Saturn, because they're like, "Are you sure you want to buy a Saturn? Because the Nintendo 64 is coming out real soon." And I was like, "Bitch, don't tell me what to do with my money." Like, I right. So,
He
but
tried
he
to
was
look out for
right.
you. He tried.
He
He tried.
he tried hooking
Yeah.
me up, because not just that, but the Saturn was really expensive, and because Virtual Fighter 2 was one of my favorite games of all time, and I just I really wanted the Saturn. I mean, I like I said, I rode with Genesis, and so it was sort of the next step was to go with the Saturn, and it dropped off like a ton of bricks, and yeah, there went 2.5 paychecks for me
Yeah.
personally. So, but yeah, so that's the first one that holds a special place in my heart. I guess the second one is actually your first console was the Nintendo 64, and I had mentioned
Nice.
that before. Like I said, one of my best memories from my childhood was in my mid to late teens. Was I My best friends are actually my best friends to this day were my friends at the time. So I ride with a very close circle of friends who I've had since I was in elementary school. And one of the things we used to do when we were younger in our mid-teens was we would go to Blockbuster together, look for a game to rent,
Mhm.
and then we would have 4 controllers and we would spend the whole night just playing that video game. And sometimes it would, because we're going on a Friday night, it's pretty busy. Sometimes the games would go awful, but
Yep.
it wasn't so much of the game itself, because and a lot of these memories, it's going to stem from that. It's a lot of the times I'm not. It wasn't so much the video game itself and the achievements, because I'm not good at video games. I love playing them, but I'm awful at video games.
Ah,
And so the memories just that I generate with guys who are now my lifelong friends, like, it's funny because we're all fathers now. We're all fathers together. We're all seeing our kids grow up, but we were like, young little kids going to Blockbuster together, and then we became teenagers going to Blockbuster together, sort of, hitting on Brandy at Blockbuster, right? While we're trying to rent a video game, right? And then now we're older, and whenever we get a chance, we try to play video games together. And so it's the memories that came from that, because every weekend it was Blockbuster, and then we would rotate and sleep at each other's houses and just play video games all night. So that was sort of the connection there. But in
that's
terms
pretty
of
cool.
the console that I played the most was probably the original Xbox.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so that's
fair.
the one. Yeah, because I mean that's sort of the combination of I'm old enough where I don't have someone telling me to go to bed,
Mhm.
so I can play. I can be super irresponsible and play video games for way longer than I'm supposed to. Uh, but also, and I also had sort of, I started to have a full time job, and I was able to buy games at that time. So that's the one console that I probably played the most out of any of the consoles that I've had, because the entire generation I was there. I was a day one OG Xbox guy, and then I played
Wow.
that thing right up until the 360. And it was funny, yeah, because I was at I was in line before the store opened to pick up my pre-order of the OG Xbox.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
What about yourself, man? Tell me, like, what um so what console is your personal favorite, and why does it hold that number one spot?
So I'm gonna do like a breakdown like you did. So
Sure.
for me, I got two consoles that kind of actually three that stick out. Because I have the most memories with them. So number one would be the N64 with the whole family thing, right?
Yeah.
Playing Mario Kart, all that stuff. Number two would be the PlayStation 3, because me and the boys at the time, all we did was play Nazi Zombies when it first came out. That's
Oh,
all we
okay.
did every single night was play
Yeah.
Nazi Zombies over and over and over. Like it was religious, man. Like we played for
Yeah.
like 6, 8 hours a night. Like it was
Yeah.
great. And then my third one for most like what gives me memories would be the Game Boy Advance, because all the Pokemon games, all the Mega Man
Ah,
games, like all of those games, right? So like any Pokemon game that was out there, I'd play it on whatever Game Boy I had. I had all the Game
yeah.
Boys too. So essentially for me, it'd be the Game Boy, right? So I
Are
think
you
my
a royal
all time,
purple guy?
pardon me?
Are you a royal purple guy with your Game Boy Advance?
No,
No, not the
no,
purple.
no, it
No,
wasn't the purple one. Well,
no.
I had I had the blue one. I had like the
Okay.
one that was like horizontal. I had the blue one, the light
Yeah.
blue one. And then I had the Game Boy Advance, which was the flip, I
The
believe.
SP. That's my white whale right now. That's the
Yeah.
one I can't find.
Oh, is that it? The Game Boy Advance SP? Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
that's the one, the
that was my
clamshell.
favorite. Yeah, because
Yeah.
this I popped it up and you play and you put it back. That was my favorite. So that's when I
Yeah.
played most of my Pokemon games on. So
Okay.
that was probably, honestly, I think I would say it was the Game Boy Advance SP
Oh, okay.
as my favorite console, because I took that to school.
Yeah.
I took that on road trips. It was the kind of thing where if your dad's driving at night, you're waiting for like the street lights, right? That pass by. You're like, oh, I can see
Yeah.
the screen. Oh, okay. Oh, I can see the
I can
screen. Okay, cool. So it's like the
Yeah.
old school time, right? Where there wasn't any like backlit stuff.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that'd be it for 100%. It would be the Game Boy. I'd be the Game Boy. I played every single Pokemon game possible on there. Every Mega Man game. Like I didn't know much about Mega Man, but I
Okay. Yeah.
played so many Mega Man games on there. It was actually a lot of fun. Even the Metroid games. There was
Okay.
a few Metroid games on there as well. I tried a few Digimon games, some strategic military games on there as well. Yeah, I think that took over my life because I didn't focus on school. I just focused on playing my Game
On
Boy,
gaming.
right? And that was like maybe that was for sure in elementary for me. And
Yeah.
then in junior high, high school, it was the whole PS3, um, Call of Duty, Battlefield, Nazi zombies, all that stuff. That took over. So I think it would
Oh,
be my
okay.
Game Boy Advance SP. Then my PS3 would be my most favorite ones.
Okay, for almost very similar reasons to me, right? Like
Yeah.
you have your generational, like, what got you started, and then sort of what was the console as you sort of were on the come up, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. I was not a big Game Boy Advance guy, and then I've sort of since then went back to the Game Boy Advance, and it is a really good system. Like there's a ton of really good games.
Yeah.
Like I've wasted, I'm gonna say, dozens of hours in
Mhm.
2020 on Advance Wars. Like
Oh,
I
I
just
love
picked
that
up that game,
series.
and I mean,
Love that series.
it was so fun. It is such a good
Yeah,
game.
in my eyes, it was ahead of its time too. Like
Oh,
it was really
absolutely.
good, and also the Final Fantasy games. I don't know if you played them.
Oh, the tactics ones.
Yeah, like those were a
Yeah,
lot of fun too.
you know what? I gave them a shot. I kind of like the Advance Wars ones better, just because.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of Final Fantasy guy, so that pull I could definitely see if someone was a Final Fantasy guy. Why? Because it's Advance Wars within that world, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah. So that didn't have the pull for me, but yeah, I mean, those types of games are really good on the
Mhm.
Advance.
Now for your Game Boys, did you ever get like? So I don't know if this is legit or not.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, but it was a Game Boy cartridge with
Okay.
like 100 games on there.
Oh yeah, no, that's how I accessed almost
Yeah.
everything.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, those the now I don't know if you're talking about the bootleg ones from Japan, which were like 100 games, but like four of them were playable, or if you're talking about sort of the ones where you kind of plug in your own memory card and then it just hacks the system.
Oh no, for me
I have
it
both.
was an actual cartridge.
Yeah,
I got mine from the Philippines. So it was an actual
yeah.
cartridge with
Okay,
like
so me
100
too.
games on each. And I had 3 of them and
Yeah.
each one had 100 games. They were all different. So I technically had 300 games, but
Yep.
they all had all the Pokemon games on there. They had
Okay.
all the Mega Man games, like all that stuff, right? So that's how I
Yeah.
played my games. I just had this one cartridge, pop it in. I could play any Pokemon game I wanted at the time, pop it, and all the games worked. They
You know
all
what is
worked, and I loved it. I think I still have it too, so I can pop it up.
that is awesome, because you know what? That's actually a generational thing, because they had that, and I also had one from the Philippines. And sorry, I shouldn't say I had one. I had a friend who had one.
Mhm.
It was from the Philippines, and now we have to understand is that the Philippines is way closer to Japan than it is to North America, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't have the Nintendo; they had the Famicom or the family computer.
Oh, yeah.
So the OG Nintendo, you know how you had to push it through and then press the game down, right?
Yeah.
They didn't have that. The family computer is a top loading system similar to the Super Nintendo. So what we had was that same thing, that 100 game in one cartridge, but it was a family computer game. So we had to also have an adapter so that would turn it into a Nintendo game.
Oh,
And that's what I
okay.
remember most about that, was that
That's pretty cool.
it was like a breakaway system where you would throw it into the adapter, then you throw that whole thing into the Nintendo, and just hope and pray it worked.
Oh man, that's so funny. The best thing too about the cartridges was like it told you do not blow on cartridge, right? But if it ain't working, you pop it
No,
out, you give it a shake, you give it a quick blow, you pop it back in, and then it works.
everybody had their personal sort of strategy.
Yeah.
When you see the blinking colors and the game's not going through, mine personally was not just to blow on it, but then to sort of just slide it in so it was just in, and then sort of press down and like push the game in and press it down at the same time, so that the lip of the game would touch the end of the console. Like it was stupid, but it worked. So
Oh man, yeah.
everybody had their
We all had our
strategy.
own traditions, right? With
Yeah.
all that stuff. Man, that was funny. That's one thing about the new generation that they'll never understand about the cartridges, man. They're like,
Oh
you
man.
guys did what? Like what?
Yeah. Well, and even just physical media, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay. Now moving on from the consoles.
okay.
Let's talk about your favorite franchises or favorite characters. Okay. So let's start off. It can be from any console you want, whatever else. What is your favorite or most memorable video game that you've played?
All right. So let's preface this by saying, like, probably my favorite video game of all time is World of Warcraft. So
Okay. That's
having
fair.
said that, we'll move that to the side. I mean
That's
that
fair. We could talk
right.
about that a different day. That's a
Yeah.
big
I mean,
topic on its own.
World of Warcraft is its own podcast episode if it's going to be the two of us, right?
100%.
So outside of that, I'm going to say that the first game that I would describe as a game that I had as a favorite would have been Contra for the original Nintendo. With those,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, Contra with the Konami code, up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, BA, select, start for 2 players, gives you 30 lives. Here's the thing, is it was my favorite game when it came out in 1987. I have played it at least a dozen times every year since.
Oh, wow.
It is only 9 stages long. Every console that I have that I've sort of hacked and put an emulator on, the first game I put on it is Contra. The first game I play is Contra.
That's pretty cool.
And it has been, what have I say, like 34 years now?
Mhm.
I have never finished Contra.
For real?
That is my life's shame.
Oh,
I told myself
my
during the
gosh.
pandemic, I'm going to finish this effing video game finally for once and for all. And I still have not finished that game. But that is
so funny.
probably my favorite old school game of all time. With the blatant ripoffs of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone as the main characters. They're very obviously ripoffs of those two guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously Commando and Rambo, but
That's actually so funny.
yeah, just fighting weird aliens. It was really probably my favorite old school video game of all time. But the console game I've played most, and I've talked about this before, is the original Halo 1. So we might talk about it more in terms of when we want to talk about the games that we played the most. But the reason why, and I'll sort of preview it, is I am awful at first person shooters. Like I've always said, I've talked about how I'm bad at video games.
Yeah.
I'm bad at video games in general. I am especially bad at first person shooters. Like I'm
Really?
talking laughably bad.
Oh man,
Like
that's funny.
during when I played first person shooters online, like during the advent of Xbox Live, my KDR, if I'm lucky, was at like 0.3.
For
Like
real.
like I'm laughably bad at first person shooters. Like if there's one game where my KDR is 1, I'm spiking a football. Like I'm celebrating. I'm already
That's
doing
so
a touchdown
funny.
dance. If I can kill as much as I die, that's a win for me.
That's
I'm not
so
even
good.
looking to win during most games. I'm just looking to die less than I kill people. So
That's actually so funny.
but yeah, I'm not sure if you knew about this. Do you know about what would they network link? So
No.
back in the day, you could actually physically link 4 Xboxes together on 4 separate televisions, and you would be able to, they would all be connected, and you'd be able to play 8-on-8 Halo. And that, we'll get into it a little bit more, but that is sort of why Halo is my favorite video game. Had a lot to do with that, was the 8-on-8, the network link. So I'm gonna say Contra, I'm gonna say Halo, and then I'm a big sports guy. So the NHL franchise, the Madden franchise. The one thing that really saddens me is that EA, when they went and bought out the exclusivity rights, it sort of got rid of everybody else. And I did have a special place in my heart for a lot of the video games, a lot of the sports games that weren't EA related, like the Sega series. For, you know how they're they're sort of the premier basketball game now, right? The 2K series is the premier basketball game, but there was a time when they were right there for hockey and for football, and I actually preferred those games over the EA iterations. So those are some, and then of course the Nintendo 64 wrestling games, right? WCW versus NWO World Tour, WWE No Mercy, or sorry, WWF No Mercy. So those were those we spent a lot of nights sort of making our own guys and
just fighting each other.
So how about yourself? When we're talking favorite video game, man, what are we looking at?
Yo, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's a straight toss up. I got 3 in my eyes right now. Number 1 would be Call of Duty World at War.
Okay.
I believe it's World at War, I think, or it's World War I, something, whichever one where the first zombies came out of.
Okay.
So that one, or Pokemon.
You're a
Okay.
big Pokemon guy. I know you
Yeah, I'm a big
whenever
Pokemon
we're
guy.
on the
Yeah.
chat and you're like, oh man,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Pokemon Unity. I
Yeah.
remember you talking about
Yeah.
how being
So
super
Pokemon
excited
would be
about that.
that one. And then my third one would be Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, really?
Yes. So
Disney.
yeah. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I think my most favorite out of all those three,
Yep.
and it's very hard because I love Pokemon. And I love the Nazi zombies, the original where it's more survival. Like it's you're in a room, try to survive as long as you can. You're not doing all these mini games and whatever. Like you're just surviving. That's it.
Okay.
That's the zombies I like. You have one room, you got ammo, you got guns on the wall, just survive.
Right.
Survive, survive, survive. That's the zombies I like. So I think it would have to be Kingdom Hearts.
Oh
So
wow.
the story behind this is when I was a kid, my dad has a frat bro who lives in Chicago, who's like an uncle to me, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So we drove all the way to Chicago, and at the time we had those portable TVs that you could hook up to your 12 volt and
Oh, okay.
car.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we had a van, so we hooked that up. I had my headphones, I had the TV there, I had I think it was my PS2 Slim,
All
my
right.
PS2, the skinny one. And on the way there, I played just a bunch of games. I think I played my Game Boy, my Pokemon games on the way there.
Yeah.
But while we were in Chicago, we went to visit everything. We saw the Michael Jordan statue. We took
Of
photos of it,
course.
whatever
Yeah.
else, right? And then we went to EB Games over there.
Yeah.
Now there was this game where I never saw it. It was cool, but I saw Mickey Mouse, I saw Donald, I saw Goofy also, but I saw a bunch of Final Fantasy characters. I didn't know what Final Fantasy was.
Yeah.
But I saw it and it looked cool. I was like, you know what? Okay, cool. So my mom bought me the game. It was in like the in the value bin. We bought it. And also I believe we bought number 2 as well, Kingdom Hearts 2 as well. At the
Okay.
same
So you
time.
bought you bought both of them at the
Yeah.
same time.
So it was like a double feature, whatever.
Yeah.
Now at this time too, my cousins in Chicago called Maplestory. I don't know if you know what Maplestory is.
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, so Maplestory is a Japanese MMORPG. It
Ooh.
was more popular than World of Warcraft. Like
Wow.
like Maplestory was my original MMORPG.
Okay.
Before RuneScape, before all that stuff, this was my MMO. And if honestly, I would still play it today too.
Oh, really?
MMORPG. It's cool. It's fun looking, whatever else, right? So on the way back from Chicago, I beat Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2. The
Oh,
whole
wow.
ride. Like I
Jeez.
binged this game.
That is a grind. It makes
Yes.
that drive easier, that's for
Oh
sure.
yeah, it made the drive so much easier. And like I believe at a certain point too where I would be playing the game and my dad would stop for gas and he'd turn off the car before I could save it.
Oh
So
no.
I would lose my save and have to go back. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, whatever. So yeah, that happened a few times too. So I was like, okay, it took me even longer. But yeah, for me, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, or the Kingdom Hearts series in general, would be like my favorite video game. Because I
Kids these
have
days.
it's dude, like when they did the remasters, I
Yeah.
haven't bought them, but I still want to buy them because they have 1, 2, and 3 all remastered
Okay,
for
yeah,
like
you know what?
PS4.
Yeah, I think we have access to that too on Xbox, and I
Yeah.
wanted to try it just because I mean I'm a pretty big Disney nut,
Mhm.
so I wanted to see what the allure behind it was because I have not really played them. So yeah, it's good. It's interesting to hear that those were
Yeah.
your favorite games.
And I'm gonna tell you right now, the soundtracks to the Kingdom Hearts series, it doesn't matter what Kingdom Hearts game it is. I think there's like 7 or 8 of them now because some
Really?
of them came out for Vita, for PSP, whatever else,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
But the soundtracks to the Kingdom Hearts series in general are top tier music.
Oh, really?
Top tier music. Like like I instantly have the feels if any of the Kingdom Hearts songs pop up anywhere. I have the whole soundtrack saved on my Spotify list too. Like
That's hilarious. It's
it's
interesting how
man,
how
it
music
hits
can
you
do
hard.
that.
Just like
Yeah.
how the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit music, like how
Yeah.
it hits me.
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts is the exact same way. It hits me the exact same way that Lord of the Rings music would hit me. You know, like
Yeah,
it
no, I
just
get it.
the memories, the connection, like it just my heart just goes wild for it. I love it, absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
moving on from your favorite video games, okay?
Yeah.
What would be your favorite character? If you had to choose one character a ride or die. Doesn't matter what it is. What would be your favorite character?
All right. So again, prefacing by saying like we're not going to count Varian Rin, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So no king of Stormwind. Um, let's go with the guy who's sort of basically the future version of him, and that's my dude, man, Master Chief, John 117. That's my
So
guy.
why Master Chief? Why Master Chief? Tell
So
me.
here's the thing, right? Is that he's one of the few characters where I actually when I bought the original Xbox, it came with the Xbox itself. I was able to choose two games, so I picked Halo and I picked NFL Fever.
Yeah.
I got an extra controller, but then the other thing that came with it was it came with the Halo strategy guide, and it's for some reason, and they upsold me on this when I got there. Is if they said, "Oh, you know what? If you buy the Xbox system, you can get the novel Fall of Reach for $5."
Oh,
I mean, in hindsight now that I think about it, I just dropped $900 on a system. Maybe you can give me that $10 book for free as opposed to half price, but
right.
that's another story. But yeah, so I did buy this. So I did read the origin story of Master Chief as I was playing the game.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, and he was just such a badass, right? And just um everything about him just sort of even in the video game, like you're reading about as I'm reading about how he was a kid and how he developed and how he became Master Chief. I'm also sort of watching him as I play the game, and there's parts where he looks annoyed enough at his teammates where he's just ready to just punch one of them, and it just becomes really interesting. And like I said, it's the character who I had the most sort of time with during my early adulthood. So probably him. The other thing too is that it's not he almost wins by default because I never really had a special attachment to the Nintendo ones, which is surprising when you consider how long I've played video games. Like I was never a big Mario guy. I was never a big Link guy. I was never a big Metroid person or Mega Man or any of the sort of the big characters from Nintendo, which I mean is weird, right? I mean that's why I don't really have all that much of a connection to Smash Brothers or anything because I don't have that personal connection with them. So I'm probably going to go with Master Chief as my guy, just simply because he's the guy I've spent a lot of time with. I mean, that's of course not counting fighting games, right? Everybody's got their main in fighting games, right? So you got your Jackie Bryants, you've got your Ken Masters, you've got those guys, Liu Kang.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those outside of those guys, yeah, my boy is probably John 117 himself, man, Master Chief.
That's pretty cool. Oh,
Yeah.
well, man, that's
What about
actually
yourself,
super cool.
man?
Now, right out of the gate, the second like I thought about this question, one character popped into my head just right out
Okay.
of the gate. This was like before I even started thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming if I actually sat down and I took time to think about it, I would actually change my answer.
Okay.
But out of the gate immediately, I would say the man himself from God of War, Kratos.
Yeah.
So I think he would be one of my most favorite video game characters. The only reason why is because that first God of War game, one, I experienced it in Chicago, the same time where I
Okay.
got to experience Maplestory for the first time. I got to experience Kingdom Hearts for the first time, right? So
Yeah.
at that time in Chicago, it really changed my life in regards to video games. Because
Yeah.
I guarantee you,
Sounds like it.
if I didn't go to Chicago, I wouldn't be into MMOs, which means I
Yeah.
wouldn't really been into World of Warcraft. I wouldn't be playing Kingdom Hearts, and I would never have played God of War,
Okay.
right? So the reason why I chose Kratos was because that video game one scratched my back in regards to Greek mythology,
Right.
right? Because I loved that stuff when I was a kid, and that just
Yeah.
interested me the most. Because like, wait, you're what? What? I'm fighting against Zeus, against all this
Yeah.
other stuff, everything, right? So that also because that was the first time I actually got to experience a really gory game,
Oh, okay.
right? If you think about it, all the other games that I would have played, not
It would
that
have been
much
nope.
blood to them. You don't
Nope.
see blood in Pokemon. You don't see
Nope.
blood in Kingdom Hearts or Maple Story or in Mario Kart. Even in Call of Duty, you don't
Yeah.
really see much blood, right?
Yep.
But when God of War came in, I'm like ripping things in half. I'm cutting limbs off. I'm shoving my blades into somebody and just like throwing them across the screen, like so that really changed my view on video games. On like, oh man, like this is one, it's overwhelming. Two, like
Yeah.
this is some hectic gameplay. Like this because I wasn't really much of what you call it, fighting guy. I
Okay,
didn't
yeah.
really play fighting games a lot.
Right, right.
Right? So this game was really my first essentially like fighting style game where you had to do button combos and whatever else.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Right. So this was my first game where I actually had to do button combos. I'm like, oh man, I'm messing up my combos. Okay, I
Yeah.
hit start. I gotta read the combo again. Okay, so I gotta do this and then this. Okay, got it. I go back. I do it. Okay, it worked. Sweet. Right. So for me, it'd be Kratos because the story of Kratos in general was is very tragic. So
Mhm.
it's a very good story. Also, there's still games going on with him in it, and his story is just continuing on. So
Right.
I've played all the God of War games, even the newest one that came out, which I think is great that they went from Greek mythology into Norse mythology. I'm like, oh,
Okay.
that's such an easy transition. That's
Yeah.
so good, beautiful, right? So I think it would be Kratos, and then a close second would be Ezio from Assassin's Creed.
You know what's funny is when you brought up the transition from Greek to Norse mythology, that made me think of the Assassin's Creed series as well. And I was gonna
Yeah.
say a close second for me, and this is funny because it wouldn't be Ezio, it
Oh,
would be
really?
Altair.
Oh,
That
okay.
would be
That's fair. That's fair.
that's
That's
my
fair.
connection. That
That's
would have been my
fair.
favorite guy. So, but I get why you like Ezio. I mean, realistically, Assassin's Creed 2 is a better game than Assassin's Creed
I
1. Assassin's Creed
honestly
1 is problematic.
also like I played Assassin's Creed 2 before I played 1. So that's
Okay, yeah.
why that's why I
Yeah.
was like, oh, sweet. For
Yeah.
me, I essentially watched my friend play Assassin's Creed 1 because I was like still a kid at that
Yeah.
point. And then
Okay, yeah.
when I bought Assassin's Creed 2, I got to play Assassin's Creed 2. Then I went back and played Assassin's Creed 1. So that's why Ezio is my guy.
Yeah.
It's like,
And Ezio, I mean, realistically, Ezio is cooler. Just Altair is my day one guy.
oh,
So
that's
yeah.
honestly, I have a lot of respect for Altair because like he if that game did not do good, I wouldn't have my Ezio,
Well, it's
right?
funny because I this was back during the when Assassin's Creed came out. That was back when we still had G4 Tech TV
Oh
uh
yeah,
on
yeah.
TV. So
Speaking
I
of which, it's
actually
back. It's
yeah,
actually back,
I'm
which is
very
great.
pumped for
Which
that.
is
Yeah.
great.
I had that channel and I had not even heard of Assassin's Creed. And then I guess the week leading into it, they just pumped it full of all the promos. They were talking to the lead developers, they were talking to the executive producers, and it sort of sold me on the game. And so I bought the special edition with the tin and the little statue and everything.
Nice.
And Assassin's Creed, like I said, I'm very bad at video games. Assassin's Creed 1 is one of the few video games I've finished.
Really?
Yeah, so that is why I really am attached to Altair versus Ezio because I played Assassin's Creed 2 and it's a better game. I just never finished it.
Oh,
So
okay.
so expand a little bit more on Ezio. Why him?
So I think for me it was because correct me if I'm wrong. Assassin's Creed, like, and trust me, I don't remember what I did 2 days ago. So
Yeah,
the fact that I'm gonna be talking about this is gonna be wild. Assassin's Creed 2, that's the one that takes place in Italy, correct?
that is. Yep.
Venice. Okay. So for me, I thought it was cool because you got to upgrade your city.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was
Yeah,
my
for
favorite part of
me,
that game too.
that was my favorite part. So that's
Yeah.
why he was a boss in that game.
Yeah,
Like
he
that's
was.
not to mention the graphics were updated, so it
It
looked
was.
cooler. All the assassinations were sweet, right?
They
The
were.
story as well, like really took off after that. So
Yeah,
I, but
AC2 was just a better game.
oh,
It was
honestly,
just it
I
took
I
everything right
agree.
about AC1 and
And
just
just
expanded it.
yeah, it was game was bad,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't have liked Ezio that much. But
Yeah.
the fact that the game was so good, I
Mhm.
really loved Ezio and times over. Like I beat the game
Mhm.
3 times.
Oh
How
wow.
much I really like the game. Right now, I haven't played Black Flag. I haven't played Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I believe it's Odyssey. So I haven't played like the newest Assassin's Creed games out.
So
So I would say my favorite one though would be Brotherhood. If you Brotherhood, then Assassin's Creed 2.
Brotherhood is the one in England, right?
No. Brotherhood is the one where it takes place in Rome,
Oh, in Rome. Okay.
and it's where I believe it's the first one where you could have a team of assassins. So
Oh,
you
okay.
would
Yeah, that one.
upgrade them, you'd send them out on missions, and
Yeah.
like whenever like you're seeing somebody, you would press a button and you see one of your assassin friends just go in, take the guy out, and you just keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
believe it
I
was multiplayer too.
yeah, I missed that generation as well. I didn't get back into. I think the last I didn't play any of the Assassin's Creed games after 2
Mhm.
until the one in Egypt.
Oh, I haven't played that one either. I haven't played that one
That
either.
one that one's good. Like, I mean, that's when they started with this sort of new iteration where it's almost like an RPG.
Yeah.
It has a lot of RPG elements. So I've played that one, and then I played Odyssey, and
Mhm.
those are both games that I absolutely love. But as an adult and as a dad, I just it's one of those things where you wish that it had that games had a feature where when you jump back into it, it would sort of teach you how to play again real quick, like give you a 5 minute. Oh, this is what you were. This is where you left the game. Because a lot of times I'll play a game, be super into it, and get better and get good at it, and then I'll leave it for 2 weeks because I just get busy,
Mhm.
and then when I come back to it, not only the game's harder because I'm further along, but I forgot how to play. So
I hate when that
then
happens.
I just drop it off, and then that's what happened with the Assassin's Creed games. That's what happened with Jedi Fallen Order. So it sucks that that happens. But yeah, if there was any feature I could we if I could include that in any game, that was sort of a quick, hey, you haven't played in 2 weeks. Here's how to play. Here's how to play the game, and here's where you left off.
Honestly, like I 100% agree with you. It's those games that are the hardest. Even
Yeah,
fighting games for me. Like you're so
yeah,
good at a fighting game, and then you stop it for a week, and
yeah.
then you forget all the combos, you forget all the mechanics. It's like, oh, it's horrible.
You know what? Sports games have gotten so intricate and so complicated that they've gotten
Yeah,
like that too.
man.
Like my NHL, I completely forget what system I'm running, and I forget how to run the power play, and I forget all of the individual deeks. Like I'll have them
Yeah.
all, like I'll know them all like the back of my hand because I'll play for 3 straight weeks, and then I'll forget, or I'll not touch NHL for a week and a half, and I've completely forgotten how to play the game again.
Oh man, that's crazy. That's
Yeah,
no, dude. I'm on the same boat. That's why I play mobile games. Mobile
yeah,
games
me
are
too.
easy. They're straightforward, but they're also very addictive.
Oh
Very
man, yeah,
addictive.
yeah.
Now, moving on here, um, we just talked about not playing games for 2 weeks and forgetting.
Yeah.
But what is a game that you've played for the longest consecutive time period? Like, what is the longest you've ever played a game?
So here's again why Halo holds such a special place in my heart. Like I said, remember I had brought up to you and mentioned that there was something called Network Link at the time,
Yeah.
where you could connect 4 Xboxes to that were all connected to 4 separate televisions, and you can just all the Xboxes would talk to each other. It's almost like an early iteration of what Xbox Live eventually is, right? But everybody's in your home. And what had happened was, um, remember that the OG Xbox launched in 2001.
Yeah.
So the summer of 2002, myself and 3 of my friends all had Xboxes. And at this point, we're in our early 20s. So the club is starting to get a little tedious. It's starting to get a little old, right? Some of us are starting to have, longer term girlfriends. So I mean, going to the club is less important than it used to be,
Yeah.
right? And at that point, the club starts to get a little expensive, right?
Yeah.
So what ended up happening was me and a bunch of my friends, they would bring their Xboxes to my house. They would bring a television to my house,
Oh
and
wow.
there would be, 2 televisions set up in my bedroom, 2 televisions set up in my brother's bedroom. We would have 4 Xboxes connected. We had to hook up. One of my buddies worked at Future Shop. We were able to get a lot of LAN cable for super cheap, and we would just play 8-on-8 Xbox or 8-on-8 Halo, like the multiplayer maps.
That's awesome.
And they would come to my house. They would start at we would start around 5:30, 6 p.m.
Mhm.
There were times when we would not be done until maybe noon the next day.
Oh
Like we would
wow.
play all night. It was funny because at the time I worked a part-time job, and I would work a midnight shift. I'd actually start my shift at 7:30 p.m. and end at 3:30 a.m. But my buddies were also friends with my brother, so I would just sometimes, if I had to work that night, I would go to work. I would play for an hour and a half, then I'd go to work. And then by the time I came home, I would just hop back in and I would play for another 5 hours. But those guys never stopped playing while I was at work. So I worked an entire 8 hour shift and then played about 5 hours in and around that shift. So
Oh man, that's
yeah,
great.
and we would do that every weekend. It was ridiculous. And I still never got good at first person shooter games, even though I would play them, 12 hours a week for 40 straight weeks, right?
Oh,
So
that's wild.
but yeah, that was the thing, is that we would regularly have 9, 10, 11 hour gaming sessions with that when we would play. We would just play 8-on-8 multiplayer with, and it's even fun. It's funny because it was a lot more fun to have it in the house and with your friends, because when you beat anonymous random strangers online in an 8-on-8 sort of multiplayer game, that's cool, you win. But if you beat a team and they're your boys and
Yeah.
they're in the room next to you, the shit talking flies. It absolutely flies. And I remember some of my friends getting so salty at each other that we would actually have to like be like, all right, man, okay, go, like, calm down now, calm down. It's, we're playing video games, man. Let's settle it down, because there are times when, my buddies would want to take a swing at one of our, guys who are closest friends. You've been friends for 20 years, and you're gonna take a swing at a guy because because he forgot to get you the rocket launcher. Like, it was
Oh, that's so
hilarious.
funny.
It was really good. But that's probably the longest we went. So, 12 hours easy.
Oh man, that's wild.
Yeah. Yourself?
I've
Because
got
you
multiple
grew up in the
instances.
age, yeah, you grew up in the age of the internet. So I mean,
Yeah.
it was,
So the few that I'm gonna pop off right now are: number one, whenever a new Halo game would come out,
mhm,
my cousin would bring his Xbox. Doesn't matter what Xbox it was,
yeah,
whatever the Xbox came out with for, he'd bring it to my place, and we would play all night long, like at
mhm,
least 12 to 14 hours, to one, beat the campaign of the game,
yeah,
and then play multiplayer. Right. So that's one instance. So Halo.
yep.
Number two would be Maplestory, because I remember going for a full 48 hours.
Oh my
Me
God,
and three of my buddies, we'd party up and we'd play for straight 48 hours of Maplestory.
that is
So
wild.
that's number two. Number three would be the Nazi zombies. Yet again, for like
Yeah,
12 to 24 hours straight every single weekend. Me and my buddies would do it all the time, all the time.
I don't know how
Then
we had the energy now.
I know, right? And now the one that's most recent was because of COVID, so I wasn't really working,
Yeah.
so I really didn't have much to do. But it would be playing my Star Trek Fleet Command game.
Okay. Yeah.
You could ask my girl, yo, I'd be on
Yeah.
this game for 24/7, 7 days a week. Like I was glued to my phone for like 4 months playing this game.
Oh,
It's like
jeez.
it was bad. So I think it'd be that too. So like I have a lot of instances of long stretches, but I think the longest of like continuous gameplay
Yeah.
would be the 48 hours of Maplestory,
That is
100%. Because
wild.
if we just sat down there, like I even have memories of me and some of my work buddies. They would bring TVs over to my buddy's place. So I'd bring
Yeah.
in my TV, I think it was PS4 at the time. My buddy would
Okay.
bring his TV and and Xbox, and we would have three different games going. So I'd be playing
Oh,
one
wow.
game, my buddy would play another, and we would just play all night long, all night long. It
Good
was good.
times,
It
man.
was good times, man.
Yeah.
It's video games is a great way to bring people together and a great way to tear friendships apart.
Sometimes, yeah. No, but yeah,
Because it's
if you,
true. It's
yeah,
100%
absolutely.
true.
If
100% true.
you're if you don't have that, it's funny. Yeah, if you're not close enough with your buddies where you can sort of take that hazing and that needling, and you don't know what the breaking point is of your friends, it can definitely ruin friendships. But
Oh yeah.
luckily, yeah, my all the memories that I have of video games, in terms of, yeah, like I said, the Halo, the even now, like you were saying that you play Star Trek Fleet Command. My Halo buddies, we all play Marvel Strike Force now, and
Really?
we're all in an alliance together.
That's pretty dope.
So yeah, I mean, it's just been decades of memories just with the same dudes. Just now it's just evolved from there.
Yeah. Oh, 100%, man. Now let's go back into the biggest conflicts of the console generation. Because
Okay.
in my opinion, I think the console generation, like the drama at least, kind of ended with the whole PS5, the newest Xbox, right? I think this is kind of like maybe the end of the book in regards to the console wars. So similar. So similar, right?
Sorry, I didn't get the last part that you said.
I think the console wars as of this generation,
Yeah,
might be the bookend of it all.
I think so too. I
Right?
think so. Although it might start to, we'll see, because Xbox did announce they're not done buying up studios. So I think if we see more exclusive games, we might start to see that come back. But the one thing I did want to ask you about that in terms of console wars, um, you kind of have to be a little more specific with me because I've lived through,
A
I
bunch,
think,
right?
4 different console wars.
Okay.
Like I remember the Genesis does what Nintendo don't commercials.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I've been living through console wars for about 2 or 3 decades now at this point.
1 second here. I'm getting a call from work. So let me just pause this and we'll
Sure.
continue right back up then. All right. Sorry about that, folks. I just have to take a quick work phone call because I got my work orders to where I'm going to go next. So now that phone call is over, let's get back to the good shit. Okay. So you were saying you had experienced multiple console wars.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
okay. Okay. Let's start off with me because I'm more
Yeah.
basic. Okay.
Yeah.
The console wars that I had to go through were just PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was when I wrote this question, I didn't realize that there was more like I had no fucking clue.
Yeah.
So for my console war, I was always a Sony guy.
Yeah.
I was always a Sony guy. I always had a love for Sony. Everything that Sony came out with, I bought it. Doesn't matter what
Yeah.
I don't care if it sucked. I was a Sony man. I was a PlayStation guy all the way. Okay. But I had a deep love for Nintendo because yet again holds a deep spot in my heart. Right.
Yeah.
Xbox,
Absolutely.
I only played Xbox because of one, I had DDR for the first Xbox,
Okay. Yeah.
and I had Halo for the first
Yeah.
Xbox. So that's why I respected Xbox. But after that, I didn't really play any Xbox stuff. I always looked down
Right.
on Xbox guys. They're always the shittier first person shooter players anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So I was always the PlayStation guy, and then I had a second love for Nintendo. So that was
Okay.
my console war. Now let's talk
Right.
about because your console war is going to be a lot more interesting than mine.
It's a little
You have
bit different.
a lot more. You have a lot more to go through. So go ahead.
Little bit different because yeah, like I said, I mean, and it's weird. It's funny because I actually tended to gravitate away from the Nintendo ones as much as I had a deep love for Nintendo. I always bought the consoles that weren't Nintendo first. Like I said, I grew up in the era of Genesis actually putting out commercials where they would say Genesis does what Nintendo don't. And they would constantly, they had
Really?
magazine art, they had magazine ads that said that, they had television ads where they would have like guys like Joe Montana would have Joe Montana's football, right? So he's a big,
Oh,
I don't know, do you know who Joe Montana is?
yes, I
Like
do.
this,
Yes,
am
I
I
do.
aging? Okay, yeah. So
You're
yeah,
aging yourself, but I do know who
yeah,
Joe Montana
okay,
is.
yeah. So he would go on TV and basically, yeah, Genesis does what Nintendo don't. Like the console wars weren't just a thing between the fans. The consoles, like the advertising agents themselves, the number two guy would just flat out attack Nintendo because they thought that was the way to get their market share, was to just basically say like, listen, we're not Nintendo, we're Nintendo's, little kid stuff,
Mhm.
we're the badass video game console. And we saw that. And so that was sort of my introduction into the console wars. I ended up getting both a Super Nintendo and a Genesis when I got a little older, but I did start with the Genesis, and I tended from there. I think just went away from not getting the Nintendo consoles first. Like I said, the Sega Saturn, which was the very next generation, was the first console I ever purchased myself with my own money. And then, you know, um, the next generation after that, I didn't know. You know what? I owned a PlayStation. I owned the PlayStation 1, and I thought it was a great console. And then I saw Bill Gates up there with that Silver X with The Rock, with their
I
original
still remember that.
the
I've seen
original
videos
release
of
of
that.
it. Yeah. Having The Rock up there with doing the whole if you smell what Microsoft is cooking,
Ah,
I was sold.
that was
I mean, the
that was
dumbest
great
reason, but
marketing. That was
yeah.
very good
I
because he
mean,
was on fire at that time
it
too.
was very much a 1999 2000 level sort of marketing campaign that it probably only works in that era, but it was, yeah, it was great. I mean, so I've been sold on Xbox ever since. I'm an Xbox guy. You're telling me that the shittier FPS players play on Xbox, and I want to refute that, but then I remember, oh yeah, I suck at FPS. So I'm like, I'm literally the last guy that
That's funny.
Xbox fans want to defend them when it comes to bad FPS players. So, but yeah, I always tended to gravitate away from the Nintendo console. So, like I said, I've got an Xbox Series X, I have an Xbox 360, I have an Xbox One. But yeah, it's uh with today's sort of internet sort of divisiveness, it's kind of a good thing that
Mhm.
the console wars have sort of tempered, and it's just sort of like, hey man, play what you want to play.
Yeah.
Let's just get out there and get great games going. It's gonna be interesting to see if they sort of ramp up exclusivity a little bit more, because that was the one thing that's sort of one of the reasons why the console war is sort of tempered, right? It's like
Yeah.
if you have a PS4 and I have an Xbox One, first of all, I picked the wrong side in that generation because the Xbox One was way worse.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
Xbox
that's fair. Yeah.
360, the Xbox 360 was right there with the PS3, but the
Oh,
Xbox One,
100%. The PS3 and Xbox 360 generation was like
yeah,
it was hair tight. Like
yeah,
it doesn't matter which console you went with, you would
yeah,
still it doesn't matter. Like
yeah.
it was really good. But then when it went on to the next generation, like it was
That
kind of one-sided a little bit.
that generation was so bad that if it wasn't for the fact that I'm already in the Xbox ecosphere. Like I have a bunch of games that I own, digital games that I own, and all of that. That I may have moved. I may have moved
Oh,
this
for real.
generation. Kind of glad that I didn't, because it's impossible to find a PS5.
Oh,
So, I mean, it's
I'm still
possible to find
looking
an
for
Xbox Series
one,
X.
man. Like
Yeah,
I have all the money for it. I'm just still looking for one.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
So yeah. I mean, let's just. I hope that it doesn't get to that, because I mean, if nothing else, we've sort of revealed over the last 2 years that the tribalism can get real dumb real
Yes.
fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, that console war stuff, if it's for fun and it's like, sort of low stakes, sort of like our magic shit talking, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
100%.
We used to always throw we I would do the same thing you did. I'd throw the specs, and I'd move the goalpost, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, and Xbox has a faster GPU or whatever, or the whole teraflops conversation and
Mhm.
all of that. So I those are always fun. It's always fun to sort of throw shade at everyone. But yeah, I'm kind of glad at the same time that at the end of the day, if you've got a good video game and you're enjoying what you're doing it right.
Yeah, and like I like a lot of the good video games right now, a majority of them you can play on both consoles.
Yeah,
Like
they're cross console.
essentially
They're
like you can
Yeah,
play on both consoles, and it's coming to the point where I think Sony and Microsoft are looking to the point where they would do crossplay as well.
yeah,
Right? There's some games that are crossplay already, so you can play with Xbox guys and vice versa. So I think at this point it's not about which console you want, it's more about which games are you actually willing to play.
yeah,
That
exactly.
the specs anymore, because
No,
essentially they're both using the same companies, they're both using the same parts. That's
yeah,
why the PS5 is scarce. That's why the new Xbox is scarce. Like they're all using the same parts, right?
yeah.
It's just now what games do you want to play? That's the huge deciding factor.
Man, I really want Spider-Man. I really want Spider-Man
Oh,
for the
me
Xbox.
too, man.
So jealous.
I
I'm so jealous they have that.
I want the PS5 so I can play the Miles Morales, so I can
Yeah,
play Spider-Man 2 with
yeah.
Miles Morales in it. Like I have the first Spider-Man. I haven't even played it yet.
Oh,
I
really?
haven't it's still sealed.
Oh,
Like I
wow.
haven't even popped it open. Like it's that bad, you know? Like and apparently it's an amazing game. There's
Oh,
a reason
man.
why it won. I think it won Game of the Year or something like that. There's a reason
I
why it's an amazing game. So
I thought I was the old guy. Why do you have it on disc?
oh, I like the disc so I
You
can
like the
have it on the
physical media?
shelf.
I do
I
too,
like the physical
admittedly.
media.
Yeah.
I like seeing my games. Having the digital thing, it's like you can't trade that in or
No,
can't have it in your hands and look at it on a shelf.
it's not tangible. Yeah, it's my laziness that wins out, which is
Yeah.
why I have a digital collection.
It's like playing Magic. I don't play
Mm.
online Magic
Yeah,
like Magic Arena because I want the actual cards. Like
yeah,
it looks so much better when you get the shuffle, you get to play with the cards in your hand, whatever else. I
yeah.
don't want no digital stuff, right? So
No, yeah.
that's the thing.
All right, you win this round too.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, closing thoughts about this one. What do you like? I think honestly, when it comes to gaming, I would be a different guy if my mom did not buy a Nintendo 64. I would 100% be a different guy. I know for a fact, like, what? I might be in the NFL, maybe
Yeah,
in the
you.
NBA.
Yeah.
No, but no, I honestly, the fact that my mom went out there and got the N64 100% changed my life, and I think it changed my life for the better,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, I
what
think
are
that
your
for
thoughts on gaming in general?
well, so I mean, as a guy who is an avid and also very very bad video gamer, um, the important thing to me was that so many of my memories, and it's almost like the conversations that we have with commanders. It isn't the it isn't the what it was like. A lot of my video game memories don't stem from me finishing this game or me, winning this multiplayer. It was just all the fun that I had with my friends, and a lot of times it was me being really bad at stuff. Like, it's funny, one of our biggest memories was we actually went to my coworker would do the same thing as we did with his friends in terms of Xbox, where they would connect 4 Xboxes. So me and my friends went to their house and played 8-on-8 against their crew.
Nice.
And it
That's
was
some good shit right there.
and one of the biggest memories and one of the most memorable things that happened was I am very bad and I was the worst player by far. And then in that game, I came up with the most clutch play for us to win that game. And we still talk about it to this day, not because I won the game, but because it was so hilarious that I, being so bad, was so ignored and overlooked. They didn't even think about me being the guy to do this move. Like, basically what had happened was we were playing capture the flag and they knew all of our usernames. So they had all of us sort of checked off, like, okay, we killed TWC Renegade, we killed Slazer, we killed Deech, and they completely forgot about me because I've been so bad for the whole night. I was able to walk in, grab the flag, walk all the way back, and we scored the win. Yeah,
That is dope.
so it's all, for me, is a lot of it was, it's the memories that are attached to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's my
those clutch
sort of
plays.
takeaway.
Like I still remember so many clutch. It wasn't essentially plays. It was more like revives in zombies. Like
Okay, yeah.
when your buddy gets down and like you have to run around the whole map so the zombies would all follow you. And you get to your buddy, you revive him at the last second, and you both get out of there. You kill the zombies. You survive a round. Everyone gets revived. Like, oh my gosh, like this is round 56. You gotta keep doing this over and over and over again.
It's that teamwork.
It's that's why I like Battlefield more than Call of Duty, because it's the whole teamwork kind of thing. Because Call of Duty is more of a lone gunner kind of thing, So it's the memories that are made. That's why I think when it comes to my daughter, I cannot wait to play video games with her. I cannot wait for whatever console it is at that time. I don't know if it's gonna be like the whole 3D kind of thing, or it's still the regular consoles. But I cannot wait to play games with her. I know for a fact I do want to play Mario Kart with her one day.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Like, I want her to experience the classics, and then learn to respect the classics and understand why the games are so amazing now.
Be ready to be hard.
Oh,
be ready to
100%, 100%.
Because I like I said, during the pandemic, I picked up a bunch of the OG Xboxes. I have, I think, I mean, I've got dozens of games now for it, and I remember I popped in Halo. And me and Mustang played, and the first thing he said, remember, Halo 1 was revolutionary in terms of its graphics, its gameplay, just how, I mean, that was the dual thumbsticks. That was not really a thing, right? So having that's all stuff that he just takes for granted. The first thing he said when we were playing campaign was, "Dad, why are the graphics so ass?" And it broke my heart, man. It broke my heart. I was like,
that's fair.
Oh, you ungrateful. Like, you have no idea how wowed we were by these graphics. Like, the fact that the gun showed you how many bullets it had left in it.
Right?
That was amazing. And he just took that for granted. He's like, man, these graphics suck, man. And I'm like, oh, that hurts.
It's crazy to think now, too, because like a 7-year-old niece, well, it's not really my niece, but it's my cousin's kid, but I still call her niece anyways. She's playing Fortnite on her Switch. I was like, you're 7 years old and you're killing it at Fortnite?
Yeah.
Like at that age, I was struggling at Mario Kart. I was struggling at Mario Kart.
It really is amazing. My goddaughter, she's oh my God, I'm an awful uncle. She's 6 or 7. I'm one of the and she's killing it on Roblox. It's hilarious. Right? It's hilarious to watch that. Yeah.
Man, like the new generation now, the quality of their gameplay is so much better than our quality at the same age way back then, right?
And the access to it too, right? Yeah. So,
but anyways, man, where can people find you, buddy?
Well, you can find me at Coast Dynasty on Instagram. That's COASTDY Nasty. You can also find me at powerhouse.ph/Coast Dynasty. I recently, back to the other 99, I recently posted the Commander Box League deck tech. And within the comments, I actually talk about how the games went, which
No way.
as we talked about earlier, the games have went quite well for me.
That's good.
Right?
That's good.
Crown me.
I believe you're on 3 games right now, right? You're on 3 games right now?
I'm still on 2. I'm still on 2.
2? Okay.
Yeah, so then after that third game, I can't wait to open packs and see what the upgrades look like, so I can keep running away with this. What about yourself, man?
You can find me on Instagram at CaramellThunder, Caramel with 2 L's. You can find all of us collectively at Unhinged Vibes on Instagram. That's where you'll find our latest episodes, the news on when our episodes come out, and also a website in our description. Our website at the moment is going to be under maintenance, so you'll see a lot of changes within the next few weeks. Of course, I'm working my new gig, so I'm literally working for 12, 14 hours a day, so I'm going to try and do as much as I can when I can. So you might not see a lot of change right now, but just know there's some big shit happening in the future, and we cannot wait for you guys to see and hear all of the stuff that's coming on. Anyways, folks, thank you guys for listening on today's episode of the Unhinged Vibes Podcast. I'm CaramellThunder.
I'm Coastal.
And we'll catch you guys next time. Goodbye.
We missed you, CT, man.
Love you guys.